The following thoughts on Happy Hour do not represent Cox Media Group or its sponsoring. Anything you hear may and will be used against you. Thank you. Vote for Happy Hour as best local podcast by the Creative Loafing Tampa. Spread the word.
Are you feeling classy today? Sit down, pour a glass of wine, and listen to Happy Hour.
You're tuned in to Happy Hour, an hour where Happy rants about something. Sit back and listen in. Happy Hour is on now. Happy Hour is on now.
What up? What is happening? This is Happy Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe. And this next guest I'm about to introduce on the phone line, I am very proud to have. He is the producer of the Opie and Jimmy Show on Opie Radio on Sirius XM. Erik Nagel is on the phone. Now, I want the radio world to get to know you, Erik. So where did you grow up as a kid?
Where did I grow up? I grew up, despite the lore of the Opie and Anthony show, I did not grow up in Florida. I grew up on Long Island.
Where does that joke come from where they say that you grew up in Florida when you really grew up in Long Island?
It was, the staff found an old photo of me on a boat, on the, where was it? I think it was in the Intercoastal at Fort Pierce. And, because I used to have a boat when I was living in Florida for a little bit. And they just, Sam just assumed that I lived in Florida and came up with this whole story that I used to take my boat to school every day, and I grew up in Florida. That just wasn't the case.
Now, they don't make fun of you too much, but you've been the butt of jokes over the years with, like, the Erock Army songs from, like, 3 years ago, and I'm the butt of jokes. So what's some advice you would give me to, like, deal with it and how to just, like, swallow your pride and laugh?
Well, you don't have to swallow your pride. You don't do something because, you think you're going to look like a dick. You do it because you're really committed to doing radio and being entertaining, and then you go, all right, screw it. I'm going to try to, give it my best shot and see what I can make out of it. But in your case, what are you doing that they're making fun of you for?
They'll make fun of my voice or my lack of coordination, or they'll just play my podcast on the air and then they'll just kind of critique it by making fun of it. It's nothing mean. It's not like exploitation like in other shows I've worked on in radio. Yeah, that's the one thing. They're not trying to get things out of me. They're just like picking it apart and they make humor out of it, which doesn't bother me, but I'm going to keep grinding and get my name out there so I can be respected. You know what I mean?
Oh, please. It shouldn't bother you at the least. You've been at this not that long, but you've been doing everything possible to get your name with any kind of radio show and any kind of attention that you possibly can. So I know you're trying to be humble, but I know you're secretly, living for the moment that Mike's going to find something dumb on you and rip you apart for it. Go after the show, and I know you go in the back there and you isolate it and you save it for yourself.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. After the segment, I'll ask Mike, what did you think? And even though him and Galvin might bust my balls on the air, they're like, you did a good job. So it's really funny when the mic's on, they kind of roast you and they pick you apart, but then Mike helps me get a TV and he gets me shoes. He takes care of me, so Mike's a really good dude,
During the break, he's like, oh, that was great radio. Now go get my coffee.
That's how it was on the old show that I worked on, But the thing I like here, well, with the old show is really funny. Every morning I had to empty the trash and refill the humidifier. And I was just like, I love my job, but come on, I want to do more. So that's what I love here. I'm allowed to do a podcast and have guys like Erock on, and I get airtime. So I could not be happier to be at The Bone. What are some things about 102.5 The Bone that you like? Because I know you're a fan of FM talk radio. What are they doing right?
Well, they're one of the few remaining FM talk stations that I actually know exist in the United States. So that's a plus with me. Two, they figured out doing the localized style of an FM talk where you have hosts that know the area, that know the state, that fit in well and blend into everything that people in Florida actually give a shit about.
Yeah.
But also, in the flip of a switch, those hosts could also become, national in the heartbeat there, as far as their conversations, their techniques, and how they handle everything. Most specifically, I'm not familiar with everybody on that station, but I'm very familiar with Mike Calta and of course Drew Garabo, who I also used to listen to, who was on Real Radio out of Orlando.
Yeah.
And was syndicated down to West Palm Beach when I was working at Real Radio in West Palm. So I used to get to listen to Drew a lot at night, so I have a lot of respect for him as well. The Bone just has good, people on there. I know they had a midday shake-up. They now got Roger and JP who do mornings at WBAB here on Long Island. And they've been at it for a long time, so I'm sure they're adjusting, and I'm sure they'll fit in well to doing midday there. And I don't know who you guys have at night, but overall, it's just good to see that there's still a company that backs something that works, even though it's kind of, it's considered a dead format now for hot male talk.
Why did Hot Talk go away? Because I know you guys were on Free FM, and that just kind of fizzled out. What did they do wrong? Because that should have worked.
Free FM was just poorly managed, much like a lot of things that CBS did with formats at the time. Free FM was the brainchild of CBS, where they were trying to sort of compete with satellite radio. And when satellite radio really started to become something, because they signed us, then they signed Major League Baseball to XM, then Sirius signed NFL, and then Sirius signed Howard. So with those four instances there, they were really trying to compete with what satellite was bringing. So they thought by calling it Free FM was still was going to be a way to remind the public that radio should be free, and radio still needs to be free. This is what radio is, and just because it's free doesn't mean it's good. The old term, you get what you pay for, and that's what was happening at that time. They tried to make everybody a talk show, and flipped all these stations around the country in major markets that CBS owned, and threw the Free FM logo on them and the moniker, imaging and all that stuff. And a lot of places it worked, and a lot of places it didn't work. So it was a nice attempt, but just mishandled by CBS all the way through.
Where do you see FM talk going? Is it podcast, or could like 102.5 The Bone influence radio, because they're doing that already, where it could spread and make a comeback? Where do you see it going?
FM talk is, at least from everything I can see, is not coming back. The fact that the Bone in Tampa exists, and Real Radio in West Palm Beach exists, and Real Radio in Orlando exists, those are anomalies now. Those are the exception to the rule, because everywhere else, those hot talk stations just will not function well because of dumb community standards and people knee-jerking over the slightest thing that was said wrong. Just like on Twitter, people want to be offended. People want to, seek vengeance and have a host career ended for, God forbid, he took a stance on something, or he said something that I found offensive. It's never going to come back, at least not anytime soon on terrestrial radio, it seems. But God bless the stations that are still doing it, because it shows a little bit of hope. I just don't see it coming back. The genre itself it's kind of like talk radio has now become kind of niche in a way where it's all depending on the show that you like, because there's so many ways to get it, even if you're not living in a certain city.
Yeah.
And the show is out of a different market. You can stream it through their website online. You can sometimes they put up daily podcasts. You can just download it at the end of the day, their show, and and listen to it from whatever market that they're in. Or if they're a podcast now, or if they're on satellite, you can get it through on demand. All that stuff. There's so many ways to get it now. That's where your talk is, and with podcasts too, like what you're trying to do, and what
Adam Carolla,
successful people do with podcasts and stuff like that. You can get it anywhere, anytime, or you can subscribe to a guy like Tom Likas, who has his whole service there. Huge, massive audience, especially on the West Coast. But he has his own service now since CBS let him go, and he's doing extremely well. He's getting paid. Adam Carolla has his own thing too, things like that. That's where your talk radio is. So hearing it on a station programmed like The Bone is an exception to the rule, and it works in Tampa. But anywhere else now, people are not going to be sitting there and say, I'm going to listen to this show just because I'm forced to listen to it because it's on this station that I like and it's on at this time. It's just too much of an on-demand world. People are going to want to listen to what they want when they want to listen to it.
Now, to go back to your point that FM talk radio is beginning to go away because of like the fake outrage on Twitter and in the community, what's going on with that? Because I was talking to Soul Brother Kevin today from the Drew Garabo live show, and he told me...
I remember Soul Brother Kevin.
Yeah, he's the man. I love talking to that guy.
I do some promotion stuff with him with Real Radio.
Yeah, he now works at 102.5 The Bone, and I love talking to the guy. And he said that on a podcast that he listens to, they said that it's not that people are more offended than usual in the past. It's just now they have an outlet to do it on Twitter. What's going on with that? Is it going to keep on getting worse? What can we do to prevent this whole fake outrage thing where it's getting people that are very talented fired? What do you think?
As long as everyone has an equal say on everything, you're never going to be able to prevent it. But you also don't need to succumb to it as well.
That's what I'm saying.
People say that, yeah, you can't fight. I mean, you can fight it, you can't prevent it. You just don't have to cower down to it just because a group of people who are, at least, like on Twitter or Facebook or something like that, when they're coming at you, it seems like, oh my God, it's like millions of people, and it really only turns out to be maybe 30 people that are just very vocal through social media. So, you got to feel things out and look at it and go, is this really going to affect how we operate? Is going to affect our advertisers or sponsors or those kind of things? You weigh all those factors out. And a lot of times companies just go, oh, we can't take the outright, dump them, move it, like it's a quick fix. But, sometimes you got to just hang in there and you realize it goes away. By the end of the week, there's going to be another thing to be outraged about, and they move on. And then they move off of you, and then it doesn't get brought up again. So, companies just, listen, you really did something bad. Companies just got to have some kind of backbone and just say, okay, look, this wasn't that big a deal. We'll write it out, give it a little bit, and then look, it went away, and everything's fine.
Now, I want to go back to everything you have done in radio. So I want to ask you, what do you have to do every morning to get the Opie and Jimmy show ready? Do you work with Opie and Jimmy in the morning and get the news ready? How does this go down to put on the show each morning?
Nowadays, I'm their operations guy. I run their channel. So, I do help out their show, but not as much as I used to on a daily basis. They have a whole staff of people who they come in, they put all the news articles together, they put a collection of videos and audio together that we can present to Opie and Jimmy in the morning, and they run through the list of what they want to talk about, what they don't, and then make sure that they have everything available for what it is they need to do their job. So pretty much when you walk in, you sit down on the computer, you're going through national news stories because we broadcast throughout the United States and Canada. Sometimes it's kind of hard to do anything local because it doesn't make sense to the rest of the country or to Canada or what have you. But also being in New York City, anything local in New York sometimes is national news. So yeah, you pick and choose which stories you're going to talk about, and it's pretty much open Jim just look at the list, and then they say, hi, here's what I did last night, here's what I watched, what's going on with you, and then just let it evolve from there.
What are some of the best things about Opie and Jim Norton that make them such great hosts?
Yeah, let's see. Well, Opie's been doing it forever, so he over time he's evolved and gained the experience to know what works and what doesn't, and to try to he knows ways to steer things too, where, at the time when Anthony was with the show and Jimmy, where if he knew if he threw this out here, Jimmy could make a comment and run with it, or Erik could make a comment and run with it and let them go off for a little bit. Then he'll throw something else out into there and, kind of stirring the pot with the conversation and seeing how it goes. So, it's a lot to be said about the guy who sits in the driver's seat, per se, to be able to conduct the show and steer the show when you have other people who know how to riff on a story or or make the jokes, like when we have a lot of comics in and everything, they're going to go back and forth and be just extremely brutal to each other. So he knows when to let them go and when to reel them in, and and kind of mold it. So, that's what makes Oak really good at what he does. Jimmy, on the other hand, very smart guy. He knows a lot of different stuff, a lot of obscure stuff too that you wouldn't even think of. So, and he always has an interesting take on whatever. Like, he can just sit down, he'll open up a newspaper, or read the prep sheets, and just start pounding his fist on the console, and you're like, what's the matter? And he'll go off on a rant about something that he read, say, Donald Trump, or the way, something about ISIS, or things like that. And you go, okay, hold it, wait till we get on the air. And he's already got it in his head. He's got this whole dialogue and this whole speech to give as far as his point of view and how he sees things like that. He's very quick. Like, you say the wrong thing, and in a moment's notice, he's right on top of you with a joke or just destroying you. So that's what makes Jim a really good host.
Who are some of your favorite celebrities that have come by the show over the last 10 years on XM Radio?
For me, I love when Penn Jillette is on. Penn's always interesting. Kevin Smith is another favorite for myself. Bill Burr. We don't see as much as Bill Burr as we used to, but, he's out doing big things, and he's out on the West Coast. Louis C.K. has always been good. There's a lot of them that come on, and it's just going to be a really strong day when those people are on the show.
Now, you've been on that show for many years. Is there a moment that comes to your mind where you're like, that is my favorite time ever on the show?
I was trying to think about that the other day. Somebody wrote on Twitter a link to a clip of something we did, and, it always amazed me growing up when listening to all the radio stuff that I could out of New York City and getting to meet the hosts, and then you would mention something on the show, and they would look at you and like, really? I said that? I was like, yeah, this was a few years ago, you were talking about this. And they're like, I don't even remember, what we just did this morning. And that always kind of puzzled me and aggravated me. Like, how do you not remember this? You were there until we started doing this show. And looking at that link, and I was like, they were having a discussion about something, and I was like, I don't even remember having this conversation at all. So I'm sure there's a lot of really great moments that I'm forgetting.
Yeah.
Even happened, but, that's something that would take a little more time for me to figure out what one of my favorite moments was on the show. Usually it's like the Jocktober segments were very good when we would attack other radio shows that really deserved to have it pointed out that they're awful. And just dumb luck. Opie and Anthony always had dumb luck with things where stuff would follow through when we would least expect it, and then it would just make an amazing bit. So things like that, I think, there's just too much that I can think of right now to sort out what a favorite is.
Where did Jocktober begin? How did that form? Because you guys did it for many years. How did that come about?
Jocktober started when we used to make fun of a show that was out of New York here. One time it was syndicated for a tiny bit, but it just failed on national syndication. But it was out of New York City called Scott and Todd. And the show, how long were they on? They were on together like 23 years until last year when they split. But they were just such a hokey show. And Scott Shannon on the show is a legend in our industry for developing, the modern hot AC top 40 format, but also creating at the time when it was big and it worked, the Morning Zoo format. He was the guy that, gave birth to that thing and developed it to make it what it was. And then until so many other people started touting the format, and then it became a cliche term for when you do bad radio as a morning show. They say, oh, it's a Morning Zoo type radio. But before all that, he created that whole format, and so he's partnered with this other guy, Todd, and Todd would do these horrible voices and parody songs and fake phone scams and all this stuff, and their conversation between each other was always so bad because Scott would be trying to say something, and then Todd would never pick up the ball and run with it, like try to, add to the conversation and make it better or stretch it out. He would kind of let Scott just kind of falter there for a little bit, and then if it was something Todd wanted to talk about, he was all animated and sound effects and all this other shit, and then Scott's not really a part of it. So that's kind of where it started. We kept making fun of this show, and I thought, well, let's start doing other shows around the country and see who else is doing the same exact stuff or the same exact bits or how bad these other shows are. So they dedicated the month of October to going through around the country and looking at other morning shows and seeing what it is that they're doing that the people who listen to the radio don't realize that they're doing. And it pretty much started from there, just based off of Scott and Todd. Turned into a whole month of trashing morning shows around the country for years.
What is your take on, like, people who say that Jocktober is mean? Like, has there ever been a show that got in contact with you guys after you guys mocked it and was angry? Has that ever happened?
Yeah, there was a couple of shows. One show, I'm trying to remember. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but I want to say Pittsburgh, where we were mocking them, and they found out. And then they called in to defend themselves, which was great. Of course, we were going to let a show call in and defend themselves. And they wound up attacking Sam because Sam was the guy who would monitor the shows and bring clips in and make fun of everybody. So they wound up calling in to defend themselves and going after Sam, and they reversed the whole process so that it turned out we lifted the moniker off of them, so we didn't Jocktober them. They called in to defend themselves, so that happened. And then another time, we were going after a show, and then a little bit into it, Opie realized that this was a guy that he did radio with when he was in college. So Opie had to pull himself out of it. He's like, "Oh my God, I know this guy personally," and then it went into a whole different direction where now we're dissecting it even more. Because Opie knew the guy, and then we were trying. I don't think we ever. I don't know if we got him on the phone or not. We might have gotten the guy on the phone. I'm not 100% sure, but those were the two times that we know that when we Jocktobered somebody that they fought back. Other times shows have went on the air the next day or later that day and attacked us, but then they just got a second day of being slammed by our audience. Their Facebook and social media is being destroyed, and they can't take any phone calls because all our listeners are calling them and saying really horrible, awful things that they can't say on the radio. We never encouraged it, but we would always monitor when it was going on. So, there's been a couple times where the Jocktober is kind of backfired.
Now, let's talk about your show. It's Erik Nagel. Where did this begin?
Again, a little over a year ago. Opie's always been, gracious enough to me where he was saying, he's like, hey, you should, because I was really into radio when I started working with them, and he'd always say now and then, he's like, when are you going to do your own show? When are you going to start doing your own thing again? And I don't know, it didn't feel right. I was doing other stuff, and I felt, I was happy with that. And then one day I was just like, you know what, I think I kind of want to try and do my own thing. And he gave me the opportunity, and, a little over a year now that we've been doing it, and the show's been doing very well. Very happy. I have a great co-host in Matt, and an ensemble with Giddles and Lisa, and, 3 hours once a week is not a bad gig.
Who are some guests that you have had on the show that you liked? I remember you had John Lovitz on.
I had John Lovitz on. John Lovitz was booked to do my show. That was a weird booking that turned into something amazing. Because the day, it was a Friday morning, and I was supposed to come in and do an interview with John Lovitz because I think he was promoting some comedy date. And, John Lovitz, of course, I want to talk to him about The Critic. I want to talk to him about The Simpsons. And then everyone always talks to him about Saturday Night Live. But I really just wanted to talk about his time with The Simpsons and being a big fan of The Critic. And that morning, next door to our building is Fox News. And they were doing a big dedication in their little courtyard there for a new statue they were putting up and the statue was a bronze head of Bart Simpson as Bartman to celebrate, the Simpsons run on Fox. And it was made by Nancy Cartwright, who is the voice of Bart Simpson. So I go over there to, take photos and watch the unveiling, whatever. And I run into some producers and writers for The Simpsons over there. I'm like, oh my God. So I start talking to them. And I was just like Mike Reese, he was an old writing partner and everything with Al Jean. They worked on The Simpsons together, a whole bunch of projects. So Mike's there, and I'm talking to him for a little bit, and, having a good time with everybody. And then I said, well, I'm sorry, I have to go do an interview next door. And he said, oh, who are you talking to? And I said, John Lovett. And Mike just looked at me and goes, Lovett is here? And I said, yeah, do you want to come do the interview with me? So he's looking around, he's talking with some of the other guys, like, yeah, let's go. So I said, okay. So I brought him over to Sirius. We went upstairs, surprised John. And there I have, producers and writers of The Simpsons all sitting together with John Lovett. And we're just having a big love fest. Because Mike Reese also was one of the co-creators of The Critic for John Lovett. So we have them in the studio. We have John Lovett in the studio. And it's a great interview. It's online on my YouTube channel. You can check it out. But, having John Lovett on was an amazing... I thought it was going to be more difficult because I've always heard he's a bit difficult. But having those other guys there really helped. He's telling stories and reminiscing about how he used to try to purposely screw up the voiceover sessions, making everybody laugh and say the wrong things. And, that was probably one of my favorite interviews I ever did on the show.
Why didn't his show make it? Because to me, The Critic is one of the greatest shows of all time, not just one of the greatest adult cartoons. Would you say it was ahead of its time? Why didn't it work?
Not why. They answered that why it didn't work, but the problem was that it was on Fox, and then it got removed off Fox and then moved to ABC, and it just was too crass, I guess, for what ABC deemed, what fit into the world of ABC. So it just got canceled. The writing was great. And obviously the jokes and everything were there. If you go back and watch it, it's very dated. But, for the time, it was an amazing show. And it was a victim to, bad scheduling and two networks not standing behind it.
Now, since we are talking about that show, you are a big fan of adult cartoons, and I'm a huge geek for them. What are some of the shows that you're watching right now?
Animated shows? Let's see. Well, Rick and Morty. I just had Justin Roiland on the show. Huge fan of Rick and Morty. Aqua Teen Hunger Force, or whatever they're calling Aqua Teen Forever now it's called. That's one of my favorite. Venture Brothers, all-time favorite. Obviously, The Simpsons, Family Guy.
C-Lab.
South Park is still an amazing show. C-Lab, I have all the C-Lab.
Yes.
And Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, DVD downstairs. I love C-Lab. I used to know MC Chris, who used to play Hesh, who played MC Pete Pants on Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Where did you meet him? I love MC Chris. I love when he played MC Pete Pants on Aqua Teen.
He just, I saw the name at the end of the credits, and I looked him up. This is back in, early 2000s. And I saw that he does, he did rap music, and then he tours around the country. So I saw that he was coming to Florida at the time, and I had him booked on my little stint that I did in West Palm Beach on Planet Radio, which doesn't exist anymore. And I had him come on and everything, and then talk to him for a little bit. And just, I haven't talked to him in a long time, but we used to just chat online about some stuff. But he was great because, I love the voice that he did and the character. But, also there's a show called BoJack Horseman. It's on my next to watch thing. I have not watched it yet, but I've talked to a bunch of people that have been on that show, and I've heard nothing but great things. So that's on my list to watch. You really look for it. There's a lot of great animation out there that's not just for kids. And even the ones that are for kids are still for adults, like Adventure Time, right?
Yeah.
It's so trippy and bizarre that you can watch it as an adult and still enjoy it.
The worst I have ever seen, without a doubt, we don't even need a debate, is China, Illinois. That show, every time I watch it, dude, I feel like I'm losing brain cells. I hate China, Illinois, and I don't get why people like it. Ridiculous.
China, Illinois, yes, is not good. It's just weird for the sake of being weird, and it's really shittily done. Just because it's on Adult Swim, everybody thinks everything on Adult Swim is amazing.
No, it's
not.
not.
Everything on Adult Swim is actually amazing. Like, I know people like this show, but I'm not a fan of it. Squidbillies.
I hate it.
That used to drive me nuts every time that would come on. I was like, I can't watch this show. I know people like Metalocalypse, and I looked at the animation and the stories. I know it's well done. John Schnepp did a great job with that stuff, so I don't fault that. But then you get something like Super Jail, which, again, is just stupid for the sake of being stupid, and I can't watch that. But there's also a thing on Saturday nights on it's either on FX or FXX where they do animation domination.
I love that.
And they have a bunch of different animated shows on there that are really good. One being my new favorite, Axe Cop.
Yes.
Which is voiced by Nick Offerman. I love that show.
Another weird show is Major Lazer. I don't know if you've seen that. It's one of the weirdest cartoons I've ever seen.
Do you know about Major Lazer? He's a music artist.
Yeah, he's like a techno DJ.
On the radio and everything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was a music artist that had all this weird stuff, and then developed the cartoon. A lot of it's based on his music and everything. So I get what it is, and I get what it's about. It's not necessarily, in my wheelhouse, but I don't hate it. I don't think it's an awful piece of production.
How great of a show is Archer that has some of the best writing in 2015?
I can't believe I forgot about that. Archer is awesome, and I had the chance to speak at different times to the entire cast, plus Christian Slater, about Archer. And Archer just constantly keeps getting better. I don't know if you saw this past season when they were trying to get their secret agency back online because they can't call it ISIS anymore because of obvious reasons. So this past season was great too. Archer is an amazing show.
Yeah, it was weird when I began watching Archer. Obviously, I knew the name ISIS, but then when the real life ISIS came to form, I was like thinking the news was talking about Archer. So it was really weird when they changed the name. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Also, you like to watch a lot of TV, and I do too. Are there any shows that you're watching right now? Right now, I'm watching Ray Donovan and Banshee on Cinemax. Those shows are addicting.
Banshee, my parents like Banshee, so I usually take their suggestions with a grain of salt because sometimes they like real crap.
Yeah.
But other times they love, they watch some good stuff. Banshee is on my list. I've heard good things. Ray Donovan, I know everybody likes that.
Oh, yeah.
I've had, a couple of the people from Ray Donovan on Opie and Jimmy. I have not really taken the time to sit down and give it a fair shot. I watched the first episode when it was on, and I didn't care for it. I never watched another episode since. But I don't know if it's a bad show because so many people like it. I think it's just something I need to sit down and try to invest some time in again. But as far as what I'm watching now, because it's the summer and not a lot is on, I'm catching up on things that I didn't get a chance to watch. Like right now, I'm plowing through season 1 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is really good. And I'll be going through Green Arrow soon and finishing up the first season of The Flash. So I'm trying to get all that done before, all those shows come back in late September.
Now, let's move on and let's talk about the news before I let you go. What is your take on the whole hackers going into Ashley Madison? I don't feel bad for all the guys who cheated on their wives or vice versa, but I think this is bad because in 2015, it shows that you can hack into anything. What's your take on this whole debacle?
Well, no, of course you can hack into anything, and that's why people who use the cloud are really stupid because just because it's convenient and easy, it's like, I put all my stuff there. So if my computer dies, I can just pull it from the cloud. Yeah, but it's not just. Nobody realized that just because they use the term cloud doesn't mean it's not just transferring to somebody else's hard drive and sitting there.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is. So when they're look what happened with Sony. They hacked. They pulled movie servers and released movies. They released emails. They got the head of the studio fired and screwed up that what was that Seth Rogen
the interview
movie that they put up. The Interview, right? That whole thing became a debacle, even though it wasn't that good a movie, but it became a whole big international deal. The stuff was hacked. Hacking Ashley Madison, it's weird because it's not a service that really people like. I know Howard would never do reads for it. Opie would never do reads for it. They kept trying to advertise stuff. I know Jimmy did the reads for us when they were actually advertising. But, a lot of people are just like, I'm not promoting this. This looks horrible on me if I'm doing a live read for Ashley Madison. But there are people out there who use it. I don't think their information should have been hacked, and I don't know if it's been fully revealed, everybody that's on those databases, but, that's a huge, huge lawsuit against Ashley Madison for all these people who were going in under the guise of, everything being discreet, and all of a sudden somebody hacks your stuff and throws it out into the public and says, look what you do, when it's none of their business. That's just like if somebody hacked into your bank account and then published all your information. Look how much money you have in the bank. It's just as bad. But so I can't, even though these people are doing whatever, they're grown adults, they're going to do whatever they want to do, and they got to live with those consequences. But no, I don't think it should have been hacked just because, it's a website for people who want to cheat on their spouses. I don't know what you can do. Just don't put your shit on the cloud, And that kind of thing. Ashley Madison also getting hacked was just like Target a few years ago during the holiday season. Had a huge problem because somebody hacked their database and got all the credit card information from people who use the Target card. Now, there's nothing embarrassing or shameful about using Target, but it's the same exact thing. Somebody hacked in, got your information, and it was revealing your credit info. So, it's going to happen. Companies have to do better and have better security policies in check, but don't put your shit online if you can't have it.
Yeah.
And if you can't help it. I mean, there's a thing that I actually want to talk about on my show. Amazon put out a new product called the Echo. It's called Amazon Echo. And what this is, it's a cylinder that sits like on a table, and you can talk to it. And it's almost like Siri, but you can say, Echo, give me the weather. Echo, what's the latest news? And then they read you headlines, tells you the weather. Echo, find me the new song from Billy Joel, and then she'll find it and it plays it for you. So it's patched into the server that can do all these different things. Now, the system itself has 7 microphones. So even if it's playing music at a high level, it has a microphone that's designed to hear you all the way across the room. So if you're yelling at the thing while music's playing, it can still hear you. So it's hooked to a server, a cloud server nonetheless. So you have this thing in your house that somebody could hack through the server, turn it on, and you pretty much hear all your conversations in that room or in your house and record everything. Just like if someone hacked your MacBook and turned on your webcam, now they can see into your house.
Yeah.
Or they hacked, your Kinect for Xbox One. Now they're seeing into your house and you don't even realize it. So, if everybody wants all this convenience and to be plugged in and have everything easy, but it comes with really big consequences by doing that. So, you shouldn't be doing what you do on Ashley Madison. That's not up to me to decide. But on the other hand, they shouldn't have their financial information and their name hacked and revealed.
What's your take on Jared Fogle? I never liked the guy, never liked his vibe. I'm not saying that I thought he was a pedophile. I'm just saying I'm not surprised. Do you know what I mean? I just never got a good vibe from the dude.
I don't think it's not that I got a good vibe. He's just a big duke, and he's a goofy, clumsy-looking dude. Very awkward because he was, he was tall, doesn't look like he fit to his body, And for him to be the spokesperson that he actually lost weight and all this other stuff made sense for Subway. That's why they ran with it. But as I was listening to the news today, yesterday he pled guilty. He said he was pleading guilty to charges against him, but nobody knew the exact charges against him, and nobody knew that he was even charged because when they seized his stuff, he wasn't charged with anything. His business associate who ran his foundation was charged and found guilty of child porn stuff, but they were just seizing his stuff to see if there was a connection because it's his foundation. So he was never officially charged with anything until yesterday when they said he's being charged. And everyone's like, wait a minute, what is he pleading guilty to? Nobody told us what his charges were. And then today it came out that he had, like, discrepancies with 12 minors. I think if I'm getting that right. If I'm not, I apologize. But something about 12 minors in Indiana. So it's like, holy fuck, dude. Not only are you having, you know, illegal, very illegal information on your computer, and you're saving them, which is stupid. And then you had actual discrepancies with minors. So this guy is, you know, he's a scumbag. He's fucked for a long time, and, you know, the way this country is, those guys don't last very long in prison.
Dude.
I mean, you could kill somebody, you could do tax fraud, you could do all these outrageous things, steal money, rob people, pensions, and all this stuff, and do all this jail time. But if you fuck around with a kid, you know, those are the guys that, you know, all these rapists and murderers kind of go after first.
Dude, he had like 9 gig of porn, of underage porn. Like, that's unreal to have 9 gigs of video. Most porn videos were like 9 megabytes. That means they said online he had like 30,000 videos and like 30,000 pictures. So altogether he had 60,000 porn files, dude. That's so inhuman, you know?
I like that you took the time to do the math and lay out the statistics of child porn.
No, dude, listen. I saw it on Twitter, and it was 30.
Listening, you should check out Ryan Hoppe's laptop and see what's on there.
You'll see Lisa and porn and movies that I downloaded from Popcorn Time. Go ahead.
See, even that's insane. Even if it's legal porn, you know, that you can pay for sites and subscriptions.
Yeah.
Or whatever. 1, why pay for sites and subscriptions? 2, why even download it? You know, but download it was like what you did in the late 90s when you could get it off Napster or other sites, where, because the internet connections weren't where they are now, so it would take forever to stream a video, or, you know, it was always sitting there and buffering. So if you downloaded the video, you had it at home, so that's how you watched it. But those days are long gone. You don't need to save photos. You don't need to save videos and everything anymore, because you can just go to a handful of these tube sites, and just, you have everything at your fingertips there.
Yeah.
And it's not totally legal what they're doing either, but
it's great.
That's a content issue. That's not, you know, as far as the pornographer suing them for housing their content. But outside of that, there's nothing really illegal about going to these things. Yeah. And, you know, and watching millions of hours and millions of videos. You don't need to save this shit on your computer anymore. It's fascinating when people do that.
Now, before I let you go, where can people find your work online and on the radio?
I don't have any pornography work, but as far as my radio stuff, you can hear me Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. on the West Coast, on the Opie Radio channel, Sirius 206, XM 103. The shows are also available on Sirius XM on demand. Plus, we also have our YouTube channel. It's Erik Nagel on YouTube, where we usually put all the interviews and stuff up from all the guests that we have on the show. So you can find that stuff there. And then Erock Radio on Twitter and Instagram.
Wouldn't you agree that this was radio gold?
Not in the least. I think this is... I understand what you're trying to do, but I think this was a severe waste of everybody's time who downloaded this. You really should be either subscribing to SiriusXM or to a legitimate podcast.
Not Happy
or
Hour.
Maybe listening to your boss, Mike Hoppe, on the bone there, and Drew Garabo.
There you go. That was Erik Erock Nagel from the Opie and Jimmy Show. Thanks, dude.
No problem, Ron.
And that was Erik Nagel, a.k.a. Erock, from the Opie and Jimmy Show, as he just called into Happy Hour.
Happy Hour.
Tonight I'll be reviewing Home Alone 5.
We left Kevin home alone, and he's only 23!
Ah! But first, let's start with Arnold Schwarzenegger's latest film, Rabbi P.I. It's the story of a Chicago cop who goes undercover as a Hasidic Jew.
Eat lead, Rabbi.
Sorry, that's not kosher.
All right. If you are a real rabbi, circumcise this child.
Have a Nagila, baby.
Because I love you people, I won't force you to watch the musical number. Well, maybe just a little.
Dreidel, 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 I made you out of clay.
Heh.